Hello dear friends, Alexis here. Come for a walk with me if you like on this churned up ocean. As you can see today, the sand is churned up, and this is how the ocean transfers the sand from one beach to another, from one place to another. So I've walked this beach for many years and I've seen it change. I've seen a few cyclones come through. We've had a couple of category 5 cyclones that, knock so many trees down. In few hours the trees lose their leaves, and sometimes they just end up looking like sticks, like telegraph poles after a storm like that. And in my olden days I was shocked at that time, and it totally hurt my heart. It devastated me. And then the nature taught me. I've walked the forests, the beaches, and I watched how it recovered. And it recovers in such a beautiful way, because initially a completely new plant started growing, the vines that attracted enormous amount of butterflies and different kind of birds. And then the trees started growing back, and that completely changed the nature of that forest, of any forest. And so my idea of things was completely changed with that, through that process, because I see the life just transforms. And perhaps some forests take 10 years to transform until the next storm, and it's just a continual cycle of life. And it taught me to look, to be with whatever is at any time, because life is just amazing. At any time there are beings that like that particular phase, whether it's just after the storm, whether it's when the forest is fully grown again. It is not really a devastation as far as the forest is concerned. And so through this beach also, until last year, there was not much sand here, and a lot of trees at the front, all of their roots were exposed and many fell over. And then in the last year, the ocean decided it wanted to bring sand back, and here, as you can see, there are quite a few sand dunes. The forest is quite far away from the ocean for now. Who knows what next year will be, but it's all changing, always renewing, and it's always fresh and so alive. And so this too, as a human being, we also can be refreshed and renewed and alive when we realize, when we feel our connection to our greater self. Because then we change perspective, we see things from the timelessness of who we are. And so we don't get stuck in how the forest or things, our lives look this year or next year, because it keeps changing. And so what we find familiar, then when we are disconnected, we then want to control and keep the same, because we have fear of what the change will bring. And that's what causes the stagnation, the stagnant energy, because we don't keep dying in ourselves to the old ideas and things. We just want to, at times, keep those ideas the same because they are familiar. And so the perspectives do change a lot when you allow yourself, of course, to be connected to whatever degree. And that fluctuates as well. But you do, and you lose fear, you lose shock, you lose any devastation at what is happening. And this is an enormous amount of peace that you can experience with this, especially in these times of great change, of great upheavals in the world, because you no longer experience shock. You sometimes just giggle at certain things that in the past would traumatize me, and you just can't believe, and you roll your eyes as to what some beings are choosing. And that, from a perspective, you see there are so many different layers within all of this. And yes, we are Michael, and we greet you as well. And we too, a divinity, that so-called divinity, we are walking as a human, we are walking in our human part of ourselves on this earth, seeing through the human eyes, experiencing that perspective. And all of the perspectives are honored, and all of the perspectives can coexist at the same time. And it is how it is intended for this physical world to be. This physical world is not meant to be full of suffering. This physical world is not meant to be victimhood. It is not meant to be a perpetrator either. It is meant to be sensual and enjoyable. It is meant to be flexible and fluid. And so when you do connect, when you allow that part of yourself that you call divinity to be with you, the human within this world, that completely changes your ability to deal with everything that is going on. And there are certain processes, as you know, that you have to go through for those of you that have stepped out of the games, many games. And for many of you, you still are in all the different stages. And so for many people are experiencing, facing the shadow self, the shadow of the world. That which is not recognized, that which is pushed out, that which is manifest as the other guy, the bad guy. But all of these battles, they are on inside of you. And so for many people, they think they can make the world a better place by just stepping into their light, just trying to radiate their light everywhere, while at the same time ignoring their own shadow self that is very fully present and very fully active, and then manifests itself in the bad guy out there. And so then, of course, that journey begins when you realize that the shadow self is within you, all of the things you didn't want to experience. And for those times when you call yourself the light worker, just the warrior of light, being on one side of the coin, you are very much still supporting and continuing this game, the game of a battle, the game of the Star Wars. Because as you know, no one wins in Star Wars ever, because the darkness comes out of the light when it is not integrated. And for many of you know that the darkness also has your divinity, your soul, us, your non-physical counterparts. We are not better than the human self. We are all made of the same stuff. We are one. We are our own oneness. That also includes our experience, our parts that live and deal within the physical reality. And so within the shadow self is where all your strength is. If you feel yourself a victim, then you're suppressing your strength, you're suppressing your self-empowerment. And we don't mean that power is a funny word, but we're going to use that word in the self-empowerment sense, not meaning over someone else, but feeling yourself whole, feeling yourself being able to be within your life, to deal with your life, to have joy, to feel joy, to allow joy, to allow yourself as this grand being that you really are, the true being that you really are, to be present within your physical world. As for many of you know, that's a huge journey to integrate your shadow self so that you don't project it into the outer world anymore, and so that you don't continue to support that coin that is called battle. that coin that has the light side and the dark side, which both are within you. They are both the same energy. And as you do have these kind of realizations and you start integrating that, you still see mass consciousness and humanity battling, but it doesn't affect you. You don't own it because you have stepped out. You have stepped into your different perspective. For there are many perspectives, dear friends, as you know, as many of you know. And many of you already know this, and we thought we might just do a little bit of a reminder and a little bit of a chat here on our walk. And we would also remind you that at these times, it is very imperative that you do remember to step into that self-empowerment within yourself, to step into you, to be you, to allow yourself to be present with you. Because it would be, and it is so easy to be swept into all the mass consciousness. And yes, here it is, Alexis again. And for me, this last few months have been have included a lot of the cave time. And I know that for many people, you are in a lockdown. I also experienced my first lockdown really for 3 days. And it was an odd experience. But it is so important to keep stepping into who you really are. And to keep having that courage to be that, regardless of what is happening on the outside, regardless of what is happening on the news. And to keep feeling you, and to keep dreaming, and to keep having the visions and allowing your dreams to be real feelings within your body. And that makes a huge difference to the whole world, to this thing called humanity, for humanity too, when you really feel into it, is but mass consciousness. Does it really exist, this thing? Or is it just a blob within you? So whenever you feel it, whenever you say it, there is this energy within you that stirs. But does it really exist in the real world? Or does the real world comprise of other souled individuals, soulful individuals, individuals that have their own soul, their own I am that I am, and their own connection? So what is this when you say humanity? Just a mass consciousness where we keep trying, or have in the past kept trying to change it and wait for this thing called humanity to change, to improve, and all these things. And yet in reality, it never will. And yes, when you still are within the mass consciousness, for those that are still existing there, it's important, yes, to be kind, for there is a progress, so to speak, within those spaces. There are places in the world that are much easier to live, for sure. And there are other places that are much harder to live when you are still playing the mass consciousness game. Within that, this word, this blob called humanity is huge. But when you step out, when you integrate and rather step through, it all changes. And you step into your space where you can allow yourself to feel whatever you want to feel, to imagine whatever you want to imagine, to be, to explore. Because otherwise there are so many inner taboos that we've taken on from this thing called humanity that in reality doesn't really exist unless you support this idea. But instead, when I step into my own space, my own dreams, my own desires, my own everything within me, then I can radiate this presence, because then I can allow myself to be fully present in my life with joy, with love, within my own energy. I can be fully present and I can radiate then to others the potentials that they too, if they so choose, might want to step into. They are not my potentials for them. They are their own potentials. I just need to live my own truth. And my own truth includes breaking down a lot of inner taboos that are connected with the so-called, with this blob called humanity, that for every person means a different thing. And so what I've done is, when I say this word and I feel it what it is. I feel it where it is in my body, in my etheric body, and see what it does. And in that space, I see where it's stopping me from really feeling and allowing myself to live my truth, to feel my truth, to play with my truth. And so in that space also then, I can become more playful, I can become fluid and flexible, and that too changes within me. That space that was so locked in and within which I felt victim of this thing, this blob called humanity, because in many ways it just wasn't changing. And I can see that for many people it can still bring them to despair, to all sorts of feelings like this and experiences like this. But it only has to do with real changes of perspective and realizing that that too is only a part of yourself, a part that was stuck but now can move, but now can change, can flow, can see, can allow new potentials to flow through it. And so I'm going to hang out here for a bit and just be with elements. And I wish you, each and every one of you, a wonderful day. Until next time.